Hello everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Farscape Rewatch podcast. I'm your host, CantWearHats, and joining me is RedNightmare 7.
Hello.
Or RedNightmare.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we're friends here. We don't have to be formal.
It's fine. But yes, we are going to be rewatching the cult sci-fi show Farscape. And to give you a bit of background, Farscape was made in 1999.
I feel old.
Yeah, that was a while ago now, and it was originally made for Australian television. In fact, it was mostly filmed in Australia.
Really?
Yeah, and it was then brought over to the US and the UK and everywhere else. I remember watching it on BBC Two, in fact, when it was being broadcast in the early 2000s.
I watched it. I mean, it was a Dutch channel. I don't know which one it was. Names changed a lot around here.
But yeah, just to give you a brief summary of the sort of plot of the show, it stars Ben Browder as John Crichton, who is an astronaut from Earth who gets shot through a wormhole.
Hey, spoilers.
And he ends up with a ragtag group of aliens trying to survive in a far-off corner of the galaxy. That's like the bare bones explanation of what the show is about. And so we're going to be going through this show episode by episode on a weekly basis, and if you're not familiar with the concept of a rewatch podcast, the idea is that we will talk about the what happens in the show, sort of give a summary of the plot and what happens, and it's not required that you watch along. The idea is that this will be enough information so that you don't have to watch every episode as we do them. However, I would actually recommend you do, because this is a really good show.
Actually, there's a lot to praise about the first episode.
Yeah, and part of the appeal of the show is its actual visual appeal, and the fact that a lot of the aliens and creature work is done really well, and it's all puppetry and
Yes.
Jim Henson. It's actually done by the Jim Henson Creature Shop.
Oh,
yeah.
It shows.
Oh yeah,
it really
does.
shows.
Well, okay, so here's a bit of more background information in that this is actually kind of the Jim Henson Creature Shop's idea. This was the Jim Henson Company's, show. They actually wanted to do a show that showcased what they could do in feature films.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and at the time, in 1999, they were becoming world-renowned, and they wanted to bring that to television. And this is a quote from Brian Henson, who is Jim Henson's son and has been leading the Jim Henson Company for a while now. And this is from the DVD commentary of the first episode, where he says that the idea sort of initially started as something like Star Wars on a weekly basis.
So they weren't aiming too high.
No.
No.
We'll start off quite modestly, and but that's the feel they were going for, and I think they managed to, not to give too much away already, but they managed to capture that, but while doing something entirely unique and different themselves. So, yeah, it's a good one. So I think we better get started.
Yeah, so I think we've both prepared notes.
Yeah, I have a few pages of notes. I say pages, they're very small pages.
I have a few pieces of paper, so you might hear me rifling through those.
There you go, yes. The benefits of being an audio-only podcast. But yeah, this is Season 1, Episode 1 premiere. And actually, before we start, a quick note that there is a bit of an issue with some episodes were aired out of order from their production number in the UK and US. So the order in which we will be going through them is roughly the production order, with a few exceptions. And basically what we're doing is, if you go to the Wikipedia page for Farscape and look at list of Farscape episodes, that's the list that we will be using to go through in order. Because
not the one
on the DVD. My DVDs that I have are actually kind of out of order, because I think they're based on the UK airing order, so it's I'm going to have to jump around a bit, but that's okay. So yeah, the production order makes sense apart from there's a three-parter, I think, in season 2, where if we watched it in production order, you would watch part 1, part 3, and then part 2.
What?
Yeah. Listen, television is a strange business.
I guess.
Okay, well, but that's just a bit of housekeeping to make sure that, you know that if you do want to watch along and watch ahead, then that is the order we will be going through.
We'll probably be announcing what episode we'll watch next at the end of each episode.
Yeah, absolutely. We will make sure that you know what is coming up next, so that nobody gets lost. All right, and speaking of not getting lost, let's get back on track. And
with the character who does get lost.
And yeah, kick it off. Like I said, season 1, episode 1 premiere, and it opens with a scene of a man looking at a space shuttle
on a beach on the front of his car.
Yeah, he's sort of got a Hawaiian shirt on, and it looks like it's sunrise or sunset possibly.
And suddenly the music for Magnum kicks
in. It is worryingly similar at first. It's the Hawaiian shirt and car that does it, I think. But we see his face, and it is not Tom Selleck. It is actually Ben Browder. And then we cut to inside of what seems to be some kind of space center facility, where he's talking to his friend. He's dressed up in his sort of orange space suit, and is going over some documents regarding their new mission.
They're apparently trying to prove a theory that John posited.
Yeah,
the character.
Yeah, so we find out that it is, of course, John Crichton, and he is getting ready to go up into a module that he designed to test a theory that is to do with atmospheric acceleration, pulling a spaceship in and using a planet as a slingshot. Yeah,
it's basically using the gravity of a planet to accelerate a ship and launch it into space.
Yeah, which is something that does actually happen. Like, gravity slingshot maneuvers are a real thing. They're used by space probes quite often, and I think the difference here is that he's trying to overcome atmospheric friction to get a higher speed out of it.
Oh, that's why the specific ship. I see.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. So he's talking to his friend who is DK, who I think I remember watching the show and I'd completely forgotten that DK even exists.
Does he ever show up again after this?
I don't know. He probably does, but
he didn't feel like a character that would ever show up again.
Yeah, but he's played by Murray Bartlett, who is an Australian actor, and you're going to see a lot of Australian actors in this show. Like I said, it was filmed almost entirely in Australia, and I think John Crichton is one of the few non-Australian actors. Well, Ben Browder is one of the few non-Australian actors in this series.
Nice.
So yeah, but they're talking, and turns out John is understandably quite a little bit nervous about going up into space.
But more nervous. He seems more nervous than usual.
Yeah,
that's the way he's portraying it.
But then, to make matters even more nerve-wracking, enter Crichton's dad.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine working with your dad? Like, I love my dad, but having him there at that point, lecturing me about going into space.
Well, that's the thing. He comes in, and he is actually played by an American. He is played by a man named
Kent McCord.
Yeah, Kent McCord. And the funny thing about Kent McCord's casting is that he was cast a couple of days before they started shooting. This is from the DVD commentary. They said that they were trying to find someone to play Crichton's dad, and they couldn't find anybody. And their executive producer of the series, David Kemper, says that, look, I know this guy, Kent McCord. Let me call him, and I'll see if he's available. And then within 24 hours, he was on a plane to Australia. So,
great job.
Yeah, which I kind of love. And he turns up as a... Now, Kent McCord has been in a whole bunch of things. He's been on TV for a very long time. He's been in all kinds of stuff like Dragnet and a lot of police shows. He was in Sequest DSV. He's actually in Airplane 2, the sequel, in film, films and so on. But he had like a quite extensive career, and And he does give off that sort of all-American, astronaut hero kind of vibe as soon as he walks into the scene.
Yeah, he demands a lot of respect as he walks through the corridors and everything. You can see that this is a man he's done some shit.
Yeah, Jack Crichton comes in and immediately everyone is sort of, whoa, stand to attention.
Papers drop, people start nervously twitching, Gallagher gets turned off.
Yeah, exactly. And he's trying to reassure his son that, no, you gotta go up there and it'll be fine, and and then the scene cuts into some scenic stock footage of a space shuttle.
Yeah. I hadn't even realized that until now, that was totally stock footage.
Oh yeah, no. Again, I've been reading through there's a transcript of the DVD commentary on farscapeworld.com, which is a good resource for sort of background information and so on. And this, they joke, the producers, about, we totally shot that. That was a real thing. That was a space shuttle they specifically, specially put up for us in Australia.
Yeah.
It's very obviously stock footage, because where else are you going to get a space shuttle?
Not everybody has one lying around in the backyard.
Yeah, and that also kind of dates the show a bit now, unfortunately. That they're still using a space shuttle.
Fair point. And we cut then to space.
Well, okay, no, actually, before we cut to space, I want to talk a little bit about the scene that they have as Jack and John Crichton are walking down, to the space shuttle. There's a scene in the corridor where they're walking down, and they're talking about, like you said, Jack Crichton commands a lot of respect, and imagine working with your dad, like you said. But John Crichton actually says, he loves his dad. He's actually quite a big fan of his dad, who was also an astronaut, went up, as we hear in the dialogue, went up on the shuttle many times, walked on the moon. So he's like, no, the line from John Crichton is, I love who you are, but it's being son of who you are
that I don't like.
Because he's got a lot of expectations to live up to. But his dad says, I'm proud of you for going up to prove your own theory. I never did that. Everyone down on the ground got to use their brains, and I didn't.
Just sat in a chair.
Yeah, I thought that was actually quite nice, because it's like, no, he doesn't resent his dad for being, an overbearing father and having high expectations. He actually loves his dad, but he still finds it tough to live up to his image.
Yeah, and what I also like is that it juxtaposed him and his dad nicely, in that he was the typical astronaut that... I mean, I guess they're both... All astronauts are scientists in the real world.
Yeah.
I got the vibe that in this case, his dad wasn't so much, but John clearly is. It very clearly puts him as... John is a scientist.
Yeah, absolutely, and, he's trying to prove his own theory, that's... he's done a whole bunch of science and now is going up to make sure that it works. And then we cut to even more stock footage of a space shuttle launch.
I mean, sometimes you just need to grab stock footage.
Yeah. And before we actually go any further, one quick thing is that throughout all of this, you've seen patches and space mission things, and so on.
I noticed this too.
But it's not NASA. It's the IASA, which is the International Aeronautics and Space Administration or Agency. Something like that. It's very much not NASA.
Yeah, it's very clearly NASA, but the type that doesn't get a suit.
Well, the interesting thing is that NASA was apparently very enthusiastic to be involved, but they would have had to have had script approval.
Ah.
And so, as that, coupled with the fact that after this episode, they wouldn't really have to approve anything because very few things involving the IASA happen, at least for a long time. So the Farscape producers thought, it's fine, we don't need to bother with that.
We'll just put an I instead of an N. It'll look the same.
Yeah.
And if you don't pay attention, you would actually believe it's NASA.
Yeah, it's a kind of small detail that only comes up, I think, is mentioned by name in a much later episode. So John is up in space, and we cut from stock footage to an actual CG shot, which is nice.
for the time, it looks surprisingly good. I mean, you can see it's a bit dated. It's not stuff
Yeah.
we see today, but it holds up.
Oh yeah, no,
It
totally does. Particularly this shot of the shuttle over the Earth, with John Crichton's little sort of dinky little module inside of it. This is sort of intercut with scenes of Crichton in his module, in his spacesuit, which looks more like a fighter pilot suit than an actual spacesuit. And with back at ground control, which is said to be Canaveral. So this is again very clearly it's not really NASA.
He doesn't say Cape Canaveral, he says Canaveral.
And of note, this is one of the few times you will actually hear the words Farscape said in the series.
Yeah, he named the ship Farscape 1.
Yep, that's where the name of the show comes from.
They said the name! They said the name!
And off John goes into the atmosphere, being pulled along by Earth's gravity.
And of course, something goes wrong.
Yep, something definitely goes wrong. They have the whole kind of techno-babble thing of there's some kind of electromagnetic wave heading your way.
I like that they just keep it at electromagnetic wave. We're not gonna think up any stupid words, we'll just use some
Yeah, we'll just use something very vague and general.
generic.
Yeah. And then, of course, John Crichton's thing gets hit by the electromagnetic wave and he disappears.
And suddenly he's in Stargate.
Yeah, pretty much. He's going... Yeah.
I saw that animation and was like, this reminds me a lot of the Stargate animation.
Yeah, he's tumbling through what appears to be like a long tunnel of, again, CG, but it's like a glassy, like water-like texture to the inside. And again, it actually looks pretty good. And
I had to admit, again, this looked pretty good. It looked almost narrow, enclosing.
it was like an irregular shape. It wasn't just a circular tunnel, which I thought was nice. And he's gone. Where's he gone to? Nobody knows. They cut back to Canaveral and they're completely baffled. He's disappeared.
He's gone.
He's gone.
He's gone, Jack. He's gone.
Yeah. What they did was they made sure to put in reaction shots of Canaveral after he had disappeared to make sure that people did not get confused and think that the Earth had been destroyed.
Was that the thing they were afraid of?
Well, I think it's to do with the editing of, like, he goes through the wormhole and comes out the other side, and in that scene we can see lots of bits of rock floating around, and he can't make contact with Canaveral, so it's possible to misinterpret that scene as Earth having been blown up by the electromagnetic wave. So they made sure to put in a reaction shot of Jack's dad and DK at Canaveral saying, "Where is he? Where is he?" after that whole electromagnetic wave sequence happens.
Good touch, actually. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so it's very clear that he's been taken somewhere else.
And, of course, we get to go to that somewhere else, because it's a very boring show who followed Jack Ryder's life afterwards.
Just waiting around for him to come back.
Drinking coffee.
Yeah.
Going on awkward dates.
But yeah, of course, we are still with John Crichton, who is very confused. Very confused about what is going on.
Like, where, whoa, who, where, what, why?
Because he has emerged into what appears to be like an asteroid field, and out of nowhere, some spaceships start zooming around. Like, little tiny ones are...
They look really pointy.
Yeah, they look very, very pointy and aggressive, and...
And as he's freaking out, one of the ships narrowly hits him, clips the wing, goes careening off into an asteroid.
It's like, oh, wow. I wonder if this will be important later. And that is where the titles finally hit. This has been about 7 or so minutes of the show. Then we get the titles. We get the opening titles, which, if you've seen the show before, you will know. You may remember as having a voiceover over them, where Crichton explains what's been going on.
Right. Yeah.
Except this episode, there isn't one.
Because that would be giving away too much. Exactly,
because all of the things that Crichton explains in the voiceover in the subsequent episodes basically are all set up by this one. So if so that would be spoiling it to have that voiceover at the beginning.
Yeah, this is very much a setup episode.
Yeah. So we get the titles, and there's a lot of sort of chanting and singing and very eerie sort of sounds. Which is mirrored when we cut back and Crichton is still floating through space, and then, oh no, what's this? A gigantic ship appears.
Oh. I wonder if that ends up being relevant.
And yeah, John gets pulled in towards the ship. Again, this is very sort of early on in the show. This is still in like the first 10 minutes, and we're already we've already ditched Earth. Everything has been left behind, and we're in another part of the galaxy, being, shown all this alien imagery. This show doesn't mess around.
No, I like that it's straight. Like, okay, this is the setup. Here's he comes from. Okay, that's all boring. Let's go.
Well, what I appreciate that they did that while still providing enough background information in the first few minutes.
Yeah, they packed that nice and tight.
Yeah, it's very neat, and this is what you need to know. He's a astronaut, scientist. And he's got this relationship with his dad, and he's going to go prove this thing, and then boom, aliens and spaceships and all that stuff. It's like, all right, we got that out of the way. Okay, let's go.
Let's go. Come on, losers, we're going to do some sci-fi.
Yep. And now he's been pulled in and has been taken aboard the ship.
And he finds as the ship lands, and something's on the wing.
It's a little two little eye stalks pop up, and he gets very confused, and then has to eject the canopy because his module starts catching on fire, which sends the little robot flying.
It's like, as the canopy pops up, you hear a sort of whine, a scared whine as the thing flies through the air.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's actually, it's a very nice little detail.
Oh, that robot! And those robots are so cute.
They're
so cute.
They are adorable.
Oh God, I'm so glad they keep popping up.
I mean, they're integral to the running of the ship. Is the idea?
Yeah.
But yeah, John gets out of the module in the hangar bay and is even more like John Crichton's default expression in this first episode is confusion.
Exactly.
Which is fair enough.
I mean, to be fair, I always hope that when astronauts make first contact in real life, that they geek out more, because they probably all watch science fiction.
Yep.
Like, come on, you've probably seen like at least 3 shows that depict this, John. You should be able to go with the punches.
Yeah. Speaking of all that, he's made his way somehow to the bridge, what appears to be the bridge. And I think he's been led along by the little robots.
Yeah, he's actually taken hostage by those things. It's like there's a little gun that blasts him and just poking him in his ankle, like, keep moving, son, keep moving. They're coming with us. Yeah,
I like that the first shot we see of the bridge and of the crew of the ship is from the back. You see them all just trying to escape. It seems like they're trying to escape the smaller little angry ships that we saw earlier. And at first he cannot understand a word they say. It's all kind of garbled, and
I love that fact. Like no, he doesn't speak alien. Are you nuts?
Yeah, they don't speak English. Until one of the robots then injects a thing in his leg, which somehow makes him able to understand what these 2 aliens are saying.
I like that. I also like that it slowly changes.
Yeah.
There's a moment that that the voice of one of the aliens slowly starts going from complete garble to an actual English sentence.
Yeah, because what happens is they both realize that suddenly there's someone else on the bridge.
And one of them gets really, really angry at him for some reason.
Picks him up by the throat. So yeah, quick description. There's a female alien who is blue and wearing sort of robes and is just bald. And there's a very tall male alien who is got like a big red trench coat on and tentacle hair, and there's a whole lot of prosthetics going on here. This isn't...
Beak nose.
Yeah, this isn't Star Trek with like somebody with pointy ears.
No. or a wrinkled forehead or something.
Yeah, exactly. This is Jim Henson's Creature Shop going all out.
Yeah, and I gotta say, they look great. I really like Dargo's
Yeah.
get-up.
And Dargo is... We find out later, but for the sake of convenience,
Yeah.
we have Dargo and Zahn. And Dargo is the male one who is very, very angry. And Zahn is the blue lady who is working in control frantically. And John is still very confused.
I think John basically is just like, okay, I'm just gonna... He gets thrown to a corner. He's like, I'm just gonna sit here and let these people figure it out, because I have no goddamn idea what's going on.
Yeah, but throughout this exchange we find out that they are trying to remove a control collar from the spaceship. And Dargo starts ripping out cables in good old sort of sci-fi tradition of like, these seem important, I'll tear these out from the inside of a...
Guess nothing bad will happen if I just start completely dismantling this control scheme.
And of course it actually works.
Yeah, I do have to admit, that's actually a good joke. Everybody's like, that actually worked. It's like the pilot who we only see in a holographic view, and Zahn are both actually surprised that worked.
Yep. And it turns out that, yeah, the control collar has been removed and they can now actually escape. Because, again, as we find out through dialogue, that they are actually escaped prisoners.
Yeah.
And the ship that they are on was a prison ship that was kind of forcibly being controlled, and by releasing the control collar, they're able to maneuver the ship and get out of there.
Yeah, and they use something called Starburst, which is whatever the plot needs it to be, I feel.
It's kind of like, it's a sort of hyperdrive, or hyperdrive jump, that it takes them into some random region of space as a sort of... It's described as a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
In the show. It's a way to just get out of there.
So it's the get out of shit button.
Exactly. But yeah, and they've jumped away and have escaped the people pursuing them, who we actually see a shot of their space fleet sort of chasing after them, and there appear to be some other ships that look like the one that Crichton got onto.
It's like they were being escorted. A group of those ships, like Crichton got into, which the ship actually is called Moya.
Yep.
So we can just, we
call it Moya.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Reddit. Yeah, it seems like they were being escorted or some such.
Yeah, it was some kind of like prison transport where they're taking a bunch of prisoners somewhere, but they managed to escape. And now we see a scene on the command deck of one of the peacekeeper ships, is what they are called, and we meet Captain Crace.
Who is human?
Yeah, this is the funny thing. These are more actual humans, or humanoids. Well, they look identical to humans.
Yeah, there's actually no makeup there at all.
No.
And I'm actually sad that they show the inside of the ship at this point in the story, because we'll get to a slightly later scene. I'll pick up.
I think I see where you're going with this. There is a reveal later on.
That's not really a reveal.
Yeah, it would be more of an impact if you didn't have the scene. But this scene sets up the main villain for this first series, because Crace. It turns out Captain Crace, who is in control of this whole fleet, he has a brother who is a pilot of the they're called Prowlers, the sort of fighter ships that were chasing around.
How's his brother doing?
His brother's dead. Remember earlier when one of those ships clipped into Crichton's module and got blown up? Yeah, he was piloting that ship.
Yeah.
So Crace, normally they would not pursue, they would continue to their destination where they were supposed to be going on their mission as peacekeepers to transport prisoners, but Crace decides to take his command ship and chase after Moya.
Because he wants John's head, basically.
Pretty much. He's very pissed off. He's very upset.
I also like that he's very restrained with his anger, but it's very clear.
Yes, he
like
has.
It's there. He is mad. He's not shouting. He's not screaming. He's bottling it up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's emotionally compromised.
It's that regimented, military training.
Mm-hmm.
And quick bit of a fun fact here. So Crace is played by Lani Tupu, and he actually has a second role.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's actually the voice of Pilot.
Oh.
Yeah, this I quite like because he's in every season as Pilot.
Oh wow!
regardless of whether or not he's around as Crace. But yeah, I thought it was a neat little.
I had not noticed that.
Yeah, you would not know from listening because they sound very, very different.
Yeah.
He's got a much higher pitched voice as Pilot and very different mannerisms, and it's actually a really, really good job. That's why it's, when I found that out, it was the same reaction of like, what? That doesn't.
It's a hallmark of a good actor.
Yep. So now we are back with Moya because we're cutting sort of back and forth between the pursuit and between Moya getting away. And we have a really nice scene between Zahn and Dargo. It turns out that not only are we meeting the characters for the first time, and John is meeting the characters for the first time, they're actually meeting each other for the first time properly. Because they, orchestrated this escape and were working together. And then after that, they've escaped, they're like, okay, hi, I'm Zahn. It's like, I'm Dargo, nice to meet you.
I actually like that scene, but it does bring up one interesting question, as in, who actually organized this escape? Because we've seen 3 aliens at this point. We've seen Zahn, we've seen Dargo, and we've seen Rigel.
Yes, Rigel appeared a couple of scenes ago, but he's like a little frog-like alien sitting in what appears to be a hovering chair, and is entirely a puppet.
And an amazingly dumb puppet.
Oh yeah, we should talk about that because there are 2 characters in the main cast of the show who are just puppets, and that is Rigel and Pilot.
Yes, and Pilot is, as the name suggests, he's the pilot of the ship, and he lives somewhere in one of the bowels of the ship.
Yeah, he's right in the middle of it.
Yeah, he's not. You don't. We get a few shots of him that aren't holographic, but he doesn't walk around the ship.
Yeah, and in actual fact, he can't walk around the ship. He's kind of confined to that area.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that Rigel is vaguely humanoid, or he has 2 arms, 2 eyes, 2 legs, but is like a little frog man sitting in his floating chair. Pilot is entirely different. He has he looks more like a crustacean, and he has multiple limbs, and is actually much bigger than the humans.
It's like a big couch.
Yeah, that kind of size. And it's just a really impressively done puppet from the Jim Henson Creature Shop. It looks so good.
And Rigel, I mean, he has a scene at the end of this episode where he just buzzes off with his eyebrows up, and it's such a good expression. The expressions on Rigel are amazing.
Yeah, you see, here's the thing: is that we talked about how the CG in the sort of exterior shots has kind of dated a little bit, but still looks pretty okay. The creatures and the puppet work still looks amazing.
Yep.
I am a big fan of that approach because it doesn't date nearly as badly as CG.
Oh my god, I was actually surprised by how good that was. I'll be completely honest. It's like, holy shit! Did I just see a puppet do what I think I did?
Oh yeah,
that's a better facial expression than most actors can pull off.
Yep, it lets them get away with some very sort of cartoony expressions.
Yeah,
which looks amazing and is really, it's just really good to watch. So in this scene between Zahn and Dargo, we find out that Zahn is a Delvian priest. That's her species is Delvian. And she was arrested for being an anarchist on her home planet.
The leader of the anarchists.
The anarchists, yeah.
Yeah.
And Dargo is a Luxon warrior, and he killed a fellow soldier. He actually killed his commanding officer, and that's why he was imprisoned. And there's a neat little detail that it turns out that they were both on the same Labour planet at the same time while they were prisoners, but never met each other because they were in completely different sections. But there's a nice bit of backstory.
I like how it sets up backstory for each character and also gives us a bit of a development for both characters as they meet each other.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so this is what this character is about, this is what this character is about. Dargo is apparently very young.
Yeah, he says he's 30 cycles old, which is equivalent. There's a lot of sort of equivalent terminology, kind of like you would see in Battlestar Galactica with, replaced swear words like frack. And the famous one from Farscape is Frel, which serves the same purpose. But there's a whole bunch of other things like different units of measurement. But a cycle is basically a year. That's the translation. So he's 30 years old.
Which apparently for Luxons is young.
Yeah, he's referred to as just a boy by Jean.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm not. I've seen 2 battle campaigns.
I fought. I've.
Jean is like, only 2. There's actually kind of a slightly flirty atmosphere going on here.
Yeah, Jean is incredibly flirty.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, whoa, okay.
Oh, ma'am, ma'am, you're at a 10. I need you at about a 4.
Exactly.
And,
Dial it back, dial it back.
and speaking of flirty and sexy times, Crichton is naked in his cell. That's the next scene we cut to is Crichton.
I love that detail.
He's just lying down, waking up saying, oh god, let this be a dream. But no, he's woken up and his clothes have been removed and Rigel is staring at him from the door.
I find in the missed opportunity here not to have Rigel go with his eyebrows up like, ooh.
Yeah.
I would have loved that. I was hoping for that shot, but it didn't happen.
So he's like, where the hell are my clothes? And Rigel just basically ignores him.
Yeah, he finds a little hatch up top where all the stuff is.
Yeah, he's going through and trying to get his possessions back. And John manages to get his clothes back on, and it turns out that they actually stripped him so that they could examine him. And he's actually imprisoned, kind of. He's locked in this cell by the rest of the crew.
John is rightly disturbed that they examined him. And I would have hoped he had been like with a probe.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
No.
It's an easy joke.
I mean, that's probably why they didn't do it. Because
Yeah,
it's such
okay,
an easy joke.
I like easy jokes. I'm not a complicated man.
But yeah, we find out that they've put him in here because they can't trust him because he's only just shown up and he looks identical to the peacekeepers. He looks like a peacekeeper.
He looks identical to the other one in the
Yeah.
cell.
And that's the thing, and this is what you were talking about before, and that this reveal would have been, and I agree that it would have been more dramatic if we hadn't seen the peacekeepers earlier on looking like humans, because it turns out there's someone else in the cell with him. There was a prowler that managed to get caught up in the starburst and taken along with Moya to where they are now.
And they capture the pilot.
And he turns around and there they are, they're sitting there in what I like to describe as a PVC stormtrooper uniform.
A black PVC stormtrooper uniform. Yes.
Yeah, it's that kind of slightly budget sci-fi show outfit where they're dressed in like, you know, what looks like military gear that is clearly made out of plastic.
The lucky part is they only need it for like one shot.
Yeah. And the pilot takes their helmet off and oh no, it's a woman. And in fact,
A human woman?
she looks human. And that's the thing, like you said, if we didn't know that peacekeepers looked human, that would have been a huge reveal. It would have been like, what? Which is John's reaction, but as an audience, we've already seen them. We already know that they look human. So
I think they could have cut out the earlier scene.
I think it's necessary to set up his, revenge, Crace's, motivation. But it could potentially have come at a different point in the episode.
They could have done it right after this scene, I feel. That would have worked.
But as it stands, it's still fine. And we get some backstory to Rigel as well in this scene. He finally introduces himself as Rigel, the 16th Dominar to, I think it's something like 16 or however many billions of people.
He's apparently royalty.
Yes, he's royalty and was deposed by somebody and he's trying to...
His cousin?
No, his brother stole his throne while he was asleep. That's what happened.
Is that literally what he says?
Yep.
It's a nice callback at the end then.
And they've decided to, lock up both John and we find out the peacekeeper is called Erin. She's played by, and she is played by Claudia Black, who you may have seen in a bunch of other things. She was in Stargate along with Ben Browder in seasons 9 and 10. She's done some voice work in the Dragon Age games.
Yeah, she does the voice of Morgan in that series.
But to get back to what's happening, it's time to eat. Which has a nice sort of... There's that kind of gag you were talking about.
I like that first. He's like, he's like, oh, hello, I'm John. He gets smacked against the wall by Aaron. He gets demanded that he gives his rank and all that stuff.
In what will become a recurring theme in this series, John is assaulted by somebody wearing leather. And then she puts him on the floor and like is standing over, or is like kneeling over him, ready to punch him in the face.
Exactly. I love that. It's just like, hi, I'm ow 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 ow
ow, pain. Actually, John has a very good line that it reminds me of McCoy from Star Trek, the original series, where he's explaining who he is. It's like, I'm a commander, but not any military that you know. It's like, I'm not even, it's like, damn it, I'm a scientist. Damn it, Jim, I'm a scientist, not a soldier. I don't know if it was an intentional reference, but it did.
It has to be.
It did remind me of that kind of. Well, I mean, he just says, "Damn it, I'm a scientist," but
that's clear enough. I feel in a sci-fi show, that's a dead ringer.
Yeah, and then they are brought along to the canteen because it's time to eat food and figure out what they're doing next. But both John and Aaron are now in handcuffs because the rest of the crew of Moya cannot trust them or does not trust them. Because they both are, well, one of them is a peacekeeper, and one of them looks like a peacekeeper. But they have actually examined him and have determined that, no, he's not a peacekeeper. He has some kind of small differences in his physiology.
Bacteria, I believe they said.
Yeah.
Which
Jean says something about there being a whole bunch of different bacteria inside of his system.
Which is interesting, that it's only the bacteria, apparently, that differs, so...
As far as we know, so far, yeah. So they're trying to figure out what's happened, and it turns out that Dargo, in ripping out wires randomly, there are repercussions.
Aww.
And
you'd think that work without any consequences at all.
No, it turns out that he actually accidentally drained a bunch of fluid from Moya, which they don't really explain what it does, but it's something that Moya needs.
It sounds important.
Yeah, that's really all they need to know, is that it sounds important and we need more of it. And so they have to find somewhere to get that and barter to get some more fluid.
Yeah, and there's also an exchange between Dargo and Rigel in this scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where we actually... It's interesting because we find out Rigel apparently bribed the guards for a key. And Dargo, I think, aided him in that. The way I'm seeing this scene, I get the idea that the escape was Dargo and Rigel's idea, because and Zahn wasn't involved in it, because apparently because Dargo and Zahn don't know each other. I'm making this up with the information I have.
I can see that, yeah. What we find out is that there's some tension in this group. They don't all get along, and I actually like that they are all getting to meet each other and figure out, their crew and their roles and who can trust who, rather than having somebody rather than John being thrown into an existing crew of a spaceship. They're all still trying to figure this out.
We grow with the group as the series evolves.
Absolutely,
we grow with as we watch these characters establish connections instead of watch Crichton figure out what the connections are.
Yep. And
then helium farts.
Yeah. This is something else that Farscape has, is it has a sense of humor that is a little bit random at times.
It's unique.
It's unique, yeah.
Let's just call it that. It's unique humor.
So yeah, Dargo is bearing down on Rigel, who's been eating his food and gets a little bit nervous, and then there's a sort of high-pitched farting noise, and everybody's voice starts getting higher and higher.
I love this. Everybody's like, "What's happening? What's happening?"
You have John's line of, "You fart helium?" It's just like it comes out of, it's completely unnecessary, but it's just really funny.
Like that he says, "You fart helium," and then Rigel responds with, "Only when I'm nervous."
I like that. It's a natural bodily function, and it's odorless. And I love Dargo's reaction, which is like, "So your subjects tell you." There's a nice bit of what I guess you would call banter back and forth.
Yeah, it's like, oh wait, these are aliens. Let's not forget that.
Let's really hammer that home, because he farts helium. Oh, dear.
I love that.
So yeah, John and Aaron are still just trying to eat their food while this is happening.
And then Aaron suddenly, as they leave, Aaron suddenly gets thrown to the ground by Dargo.
Yeah, because she pocketed a fork in her sleeve to try and escape. But nope, they're onto her. She gets denied.
And then actually they, it's a very minor detail, they reuse a shot from earlier in that scene. With her eating casually, being like, I'm not telling anything.
Yep.
I noticed that, it's just, it doesn't mean anything, it works fine, it's just, I noticed that it was the same shot. I can't not see these things.
So they're actually trying to figure out from Aaron whether or not there's a peacekeeper presence on this planet that they found, which has a commerce section or is a commerce planet where they can go and get some fluid. But Aaron doesn't know anything and isn't telling them anything and is just eating her food silently. So they stick Aaron and John back in the cell, and this is when John has a bit of dialogue where he's like, "Oh, you know, I must have come here through a wormhole."
It's like, that must be it.
That's got to be it. There's no other explanation.
Clever boy. Clever boy.
And Aaron is completely uninterested in what he's saying because she's trying to escape.
She's like, if only I had a fork.
And what do you know? John actually sequestered a fork in his sleeve because nobody was looking at him because he's been able to convince everyone that he's not really a threat and he's just kind of an idiot.
Yeah.
And then they actually manage to escape. And there's, a bit of dialogue between John and Aaron where John's trying to figure out where his loyalties should be because he doesn't know anything about what's going on here.
He doesn't know any of these people.
Yeah. And there's a line between him and Aaron where he's like, we've got to help them. And it's, they're prisoners. And it's like, but what about compassion? He's like, and Aaron is, what is compassion?
That fuzzy feeling when you see somebody else in trouble and you, instead of stamping on them, you help them.
He's like, oh, yes, I know this feeling. I hate it.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay.
That kind of clues Crichton into, okay, I don't think I want to be aligned with the peacekeepers here. He's like, I'm going to stay. And,
yeah.
But then Aaron is like, no, that's a bad idea. Your only chance of survival is to come with me, and I'm going to call the peacekeeper carrier to come and get us.
And Crichton, wisely, I think, fearing Aaron breaking his arm or something, he's like, okay, I'll come along.
And then we see that, Krace has received their call and is going to be heading to the commerce planet. And meanwhile, Dargo and Jean are walking around, and Rigel is bartering with this. Oh,
I love that creature.
There's another amazing bit of puppet work from the Jim Henson creature shop, which is this merchant sitting behind like a table full of wares and so on. There's just this amazingly huge non-humanoid thing with like giant mandibles and so much teeth that just moves up and down and like has a bit of steam coming out of it.
It's like I had to admit this one looked a bit dated, but it looks amazing still. It's like this giant. It's like you do not want to get eaten by that.
Nope.
It seems like a horrible death.
And Rigel is trying to barter with some of his possessions, like his rings and so on, to get some more fluid. This thing sort of growls at him and is very angry.
And Rigel doesn't seem impressed at all. He's like, okay, so let's start at 35 then?
But then Dargo and Jean get wind of Krace's appearance and have to make plans to escape. So they grab Rigel and start to make their way back to Moya in the shuttle that they came here in. And then we cut back to Aaron and John, who are suddenly apprehended. Krace appears.
Well, no, actually, one other
right.
thing happens. They try to get back to their own ship as they see the shuttle of Moya leaving. And then they turn around, and there's Dargo with his sword.
It's like, I'm not letting you leave. And they do that. There's a classic bit where Krace then appears behind Dargo, and John and Aaron are like, oh no. Dargo says, oh, I'm not falling for that old one. And Krace is like, yeah, you are, hello.
It's like, I'm not falling for that. Whoa, he's right behind me.
And Krace is here and has come to take them back, and so he restrains Dargo and is, well, he goes to see John. He's like, you killed my brother.
It's like, what?
I did what now?
Sorry, it's been a bit of a blur. Who did I kill?
And he's able to figure out that it's the near miss he had in his module, and he's like, "No, that was an accident." It's like, "Yeah, okay," says Grace. It's like, "I'm taking you in anyway."
What I like is like Aaron is like, no. He seems like a stand-up guy. How long have you been talking to him? Grace asks, and I like that John actually senses what's going on and he covers for us like not long.
This is again a recurring thing that he's trying to actually help her because he sees someone who has been, I think, brainwashed by peacekeepers into being this unfeeling person. Is like, no, I can help you.
Yeah, don't be like this.
Yeah. So he covers for her because she actually did help him to escape, even though it may not have been the right thing to do with regards to everybody else, but she did try and help him get out of there.
Yeah, but despite that, Grace is like, well, you know that if you're been exposed to unauthorized alien creatures, that you might be corrupted irreversibly.
Yep. Which means death.
Peacekeepers are assholes.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
It's like if you talk to it's specifically aliens that they don't know, like new sort of alien contacts. If you talk to them for any length of time, you've been, quote, contaminated and, are therefore useless.
You need to be shot.
Yeah.
Taken out behind the barn and shot.
Pretty much. So yeah, all three of them, Dargo, Aaron and John, get taken prisoner. There's this scene in what is very clearly a kind of backlot or like a disused like factory or something. But there are these two guys in standard sort of military uniforms with balaclavas, and John is like, "Oh, what?" He takes the puzzle ring off John that his dad gave him. It's like, "Oh, what's this then?" It's like, "Oh, it's a puzzle. You have to take it apart and figure out how to put it together." It's like, "Oh, combat training, a field training exercise or whatever it is."
I love that sentence. That says so much about the peacekeepers in one tiny sentence. Like, these people think about everything in military terms.
Yep.
They have nothing outside of the military.
Not at all. So he's like, "No, okay, here's what you do is you start taking it apart." The guy does that sort of classic bit of like, "Oh yeah, I'll take this apart. I'll follow the instructions of this guy."
And I put it back together again. And the other one's like, no, it's a weapon. Come here. And they start...
there's a scuffle, and then John is able to take their gun and then hold them up.
Idiots.
Yeah.
These are Metal Gear Solid grade cards.
Absolutely. It's a good thing Grace decided to, hand them over to his dumbest guards.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Peacekeeper Elite right here.
Yep. Just these pair of bozos who are like, "Oh, let's have a look at this thing."
Not pay attention to the prisoners at all.
Nope.
And so he basically just forces him to hand over the keys. I love that there's like, on one hand, he has the gun, so he can't actually open his handcuffs himself. So it's like, both Aaron and Dargo are like, no, give me the keys, give me the keys, give me the keys. You can't trust them.
Unlock me, no, unlock me. There's also a great line where he gets hold of the gun, which starts firing like little yellow laser bolts. And he has to like, "Freeze, or I'll fill you full of little yellow bolts of light." I think both Aaron and Dargo look at him like, "What the hell did you just say?"
Are you an idiot?
But yeah, eventually he's able to convince Aaron to come with him because she wants to go back to the Peacekeepers. She's, is still kind of loyal to them, but they John basically says to her like, "No, you're gonna die if you go back there."
And she's like, "Yeah, but it's my purpose. It's my mission." It's like, you can be so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just saying, you can be more. You can be better than this. You don't have to be this person that they've made you into. And so through that he's able to convince her to come with him because realistically they're the only chance of survival that she has. So they get back, they take her Prowler, her spaceship, back to Moya, where Jean and Rigel are waiting for them because they managed to escape in the shuttle and leave Dargo behind to take care of Aaron and John, but they get back on Moya and start to make their escape.
And suddenly, giant spaceship approaches.
Yeah, it's Grace's command carrier is is chasing them, and this is when Erin starts to prove her usefulness, because they're being chased, and they bring around they're called frag cannons, the peacekeeper weapons, and they're being chased at a range of 60 meters. Is the now I'm not sure what the conversion for that is. It's either meters, which would be too obvious, but that's very, very close.
That's
way too close.
Put on the brakes and you're slamming into each other at that.
So it may be something like kilometers. It may be.
I'd expect it to be something along the lines of millions of meters or something like that. Probably even.
That would be
space is big.
They're flying around a planet. I think that would be probably a bit too large. I think 60 kilometers is about what you want.
Something like that. Very short range weapons then. If you only have 42 kilometer range weapons.
Yes, because Erin then says they're 60 meters away, and Erin actually gives information saying that okay, the range of those cannons is 45 meters.
Yeah, so we're out of range for now.
Yeah, so she's starting to help, and John says, well, why don't we just starburst? That worked so well the first time. But it turns out Moya needs to recharge before Moya can starburst.
Why don't we starburst? Well, because plot reasons, we can't.
Because it's more dramatic if we have to charge up and can't actually do this.
Exactly.
Which, I'm fine with. It would be a little too easy if they're just like, alright, boom, starburst, gone.
Yeah.
For this first episode, at least. So, Moya needs to recharge, so they can't starburst. Then John has a bright idea. Which is, it's a bit of a, if you know there's a trope called Chekhov's boomerang, or Chekhov's skill. It's more appropriately known as Chekhov's gun, which is when you see something in an episode that is given attention, it is going to be useful later.
Yeah, we've already seen that happen with the good luck charm his dad gave him.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing the guards are arguing over
Absolutely.
in that scene.
Yeah. So John is like, aha, wait, I have a thing for this.
I have a theory.
And he's like, I need paper, and they like, what the hell is paper? So he gets a marker pen that he apparently has in his jumpsuit and just starts writing on the floor, doing some calculations, because he's trying to do the exact same slingshot maneuver that he did at the beginning of the show, only with Moya to escape the peacekeepers who are chasing them. But to do this, they need to actually manually fly the ship, and guess who is the only person who can actually fly a ship reasonably well?
Erin.
It's Erin.
Yep.
Because they say, Dargo, you fly it. It's like, I'm not a pilot. So they all look at Erin and like, it's this or die. And she's like, all right, fine. And they
Come here.
They ask Pilot to give her manual control, which for all the world looks like a kind of one of those trackball mouses. The ones with the big red ball in the middle of them.
It's a weird. It seems like a joystick, but with a necessary, almost like a sundial attached to it. That's how I view it.
So yeah, John is giving her, the information of like, you need to hit this angle and this degree and go towards the planet, and it's a very sort of tense sequence of like, last time you did this, John, you got sucked through a wormhole.
That didn't end so well.
Yeah, and like you haven't actually proven that this works.
But of course, because otherwise the show would be incredibly short, they actually succeed.
Yep, it works. Everything is fine. They zoom off out of the planet, and they are out of range of the peacekeepers. They're off their sensors, and so they're able to take a breather and relax and start plotting their course, which they say going towards the uncharted territories, which is somewhere where peacekeepers have no jurisdiction.
And as the little thing I like about this is that in celebration, Zahn gives Crichton a ear kiss.
Yeah, this is something I think that didn't make it to air in certain places. But this is fully intact on the DVDs. Like, she comes up to John, hugs him, and then puts her ear against his. And there's this kind of weird sort of shake, and he's sort of like, "Whoa, what just happened?"
And also like that Dargo's like, almost like, oh.
It's very heavily implied that was something kind of, kind of sexual or
intimate at the very least.
Intimate.
Like,
that's the word I was looking
yeah.
for. And everyone is sort of looking at him like, dude. And it's like, well, what just happened? But
still
now,
out of his element.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So now we get a bit of a breather from all this action, and John is able to kind of try and settle in. And we get some shots of just the hallways of Moya. And actually something I wanted to talk about was, as well as the creature design and the makeup, the set design for Moya is really good.
It's beautiful.
It's these sort of
Pretty ship.
brown, but like bronze kind of coloured walls and like shiny floors. Because I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, but Moya is a living ship.
Yeah.
Moya is alive.
It's a creature, a leviathan they call it, I think.
Yes, and they look like more kind of organic shapes. They're not like a rectangular corridor or
Exactly.
just circular. They're kind of an odd shape of like a kind of
Blood vessel almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of design, which is really nice. And the doors in the corridors kind of operate. They sort of swing out from like a point about a third of the way along them, which makes them look kind of like valves.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than, just a normal door.
Yeah, I remember seeing the doors like that, but I hadn't realized them being valves. That's a nice detail.
Yeah, there's a ton of really great details in this. And so we see shots of people, of the crew, settling down. You see Dargo has his sword, which he is sort of shining. And then we see Jeanne is meditating.
Naked.
We see her from her back. She's entirely blue, like this makeup job they did on her actress is Virginia Hay. It's just it's entire like full body blue paint, and it's a hell of a job they did.
That must have been
the makeup process for that must have taken forever.
Oh, like, man.
When you see her in close-ups, like the detail on like the little bit, she's not just blue. Like she hasn't just been. It's not like a Blue Man Group. There's all kinds of detailing around her eyes of like little scale-looking things, and she has different coloured contacts, and there's just an amazing makeup job they did.
I mean, it looks clearly human. She looks clearly humanoid, but
very alien.
Very far from what humans look like.
And then we have John is assaulted by Dargo as he's walking through the corridors, because Dargo is like, I still don't really trust you. It's like, I don't know who you are, where you came from, or where your allegiances are. I don't trust you, and if you try and threaten my freedom, I'll kill you. And John's friend's like, okay.
And Dargo, to prove his point, uses a sword that is surprisingly blunt. Holy crap, that point is blunt. It's like, if...
It's more of a clobbering weapon at this point.
I was gonna say, it's like that point. You put that point of the sword up against his throat, and it's like, that would give you, at worst, a nasty bruise. Like, that's not gonna cut anything.
That's probably why Dargo was, polishing it, or maybe he was like using a whetstone kind of thing, because it may need sharpening after having...
I was gonna say, it looks like it. That's what I mean, it might be just a slashing weapon.
Maybe.
But if you're just using the point as a threat instead of the blade, I'm like, come on.
Well, in that exchange between him and Crichton, you find out that he's been on Moya, or been imprisoned for 8 cycles, so 8 years. So it's possible that his sword has been in storage for 8 years and has kind of gone a bit dull.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense.
So maybe he needs to, shine it up a bit. This scene then goes into one of John trying to get his stuff together, and is talking to Aaron, who says that Luxons are a very angry race. Don't cross them. Very indiscriminate in their application of force and stuff like that.
And he retorts with, "Oh, and your species is different?"
Yeah.
It's like, bird.
Shots fired, shots fired. But Aaron warns John that you're not safe. We may be in uncharted territories where peacekeepers have no jurisdiction, but Crace thinks you killed his brother. Would you, if she says to him, if you were in his position, would you obey jurisdiction? He doesn't say anything, but he's clearly like, right, yeah, he's coming to get me. And then, yeah, it's kind of a solemn shot of John, who has a tape recorder, and he's starting to record some messages to his dad about what's happening here.
I like he's like, I mean, you're never gonna get this,
Yeah.
but I still want to tell you what's going on.
It's a nice device because it allows him to narrate what's been happening and, how he's feeling, and gives us kind of an insight into that without just being, say, like narration over the top of the show.
Yeah, it allows him to also add some character to those recordings.
Yeah, it's a way of. It also seems to be quite clearly a way of coping with what's going on.
Uh-huh. Very clearly a way of coping.
Yeah.
It's almost like, as long as he can record, he still feels like he has a connection back home. Even if they'll probably never hear this recording, it feels like they're still there.
And as he's recording this, he's actually fixing up the little robot that he ejected off the canopy of his module earlier, because his eye stalk got broken. But I like that because it shows that he's integrating into the crew of Moya. He's, participating.
Yeah.
After, helping to save their lives, and he's now fixing up they're called DRDs, kind of slowly becoming part of the crew.
I like how it really sets this episode up as it ends, being like, this series, like, okay, this is Powder Keg. These people don't all like each other at all.
Yep, he says in his message to his dad that there's life out here, amazing, psychotic life. I think is the line. Like, this is not a nice place.
This is not what I would have expected First Contact to be.
And there it ends. We pull back out, and there's a shot of Moya, a nice CG shot of Moya going over what appears to be some kind of either galactic disc or planetary disc or something like that. And there you go, then we have the end credits. And that's episode 1 of Farscape.
It feels a bit crowded, the first episode.
I mean, they've got a lot of exposition to do.
I mean, yeah, totally. It's pretty impressive what they push into 45 minutes, but it feels like this used to be a longer episode, like a longer pilot, and they had to cut pieces out to make it function in its planned time slot. That's what it feels to me. It
does feel kind of, I don't want to say rushed, but it does feel like you said, very hectic and very... there's a lot to take in with this episode. Even just, recording this and trying to get across what's happening, there's so much going on. They're like, oh wait, you have to explain this thing and this thing and this.
We cut to this and then to that, and we go back there. Oh, there's also this thing.
I mean, in another type of show, the pilot could very easily have been much more on Earth. It could have been like the first half of the show, or the first half of the episode, rather than the first 10 minutes. Even could have been on Earth with, setting up Crichton's backstory, and then even like most of the episode could have been that, and then at the end he gets shot through a wormhole, and then he meets aliens, and then cliffhanger.
I'm glad they didn't do that.
I am also glad they did not,
because that's not what you watch the show for. That's not the interesting part.
Absolutely.
I always hate it when any form of media, book, game, movie, just series starts with, okay, the first half of this is just going to be set up, and then halfway we'll get to the good stuff. It's like, no, get to the good stuff. Skip all the... If you're admitting that the first part is boring, don't show that. Go straight to the good stuff.
And that's exactly what they do. They just dive in. They just go straight into the deep end of like,
yep.
Okay, here's a few things you need to know. Here's Earth. Here's something familiar. Here's, John Crichton. He's an astronaut. He's doing this thing. Okay, boom. Aliens, living ships, space fighters, all this kind of stuff. It's like, whoa, okay. Alright, we're not starting off slow here.
Nope.
Yeah, I think as pilot episodes go, like you said, it was kind of a lot to take in. Dense is a good word.
Yeah, dense is a very good word. It's very dense.
But it does have actually a strong narrative going through it, so you are able to follow what's going on.
So I'm hoping that they can dial back the density a bit.
I have bad news.
Uh-oh.
There's hectic and kind of crazy is probably the best way to describe Farscape in general. There are a few episodes that are kind of a bit slower, but it starts off crazy and only gets crazier. And that's kind of the appeal of it, because it doesn't really do a whole lot of the slow, plodding, philosophical stuff. It's like, nope, we're going full ham with this.
Nice. There's one other thing before we wrap this up. Is something maybe you also noticed? I think I found that some of the shots were shot in very weird angles.
Oh yeah, there's some kind of forgive the expression, Dutch angles.
Hey,
It's a thing.
I know, but hey.
Like, being shot from like underneath, pointing up, and at sort of askew, or like a couple of degrees rotated.
It's not my favorite type.
I think part of it, certainly in later episodes, because I remember this from certain things, in that actually adds to the weirdness and of the episode. But in this episode, it wasn't strictly necessary, and they're still feeling things out. It's only episode 1.
Yep.
And we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, I thought overall that was a pretty strong pilot episode.
Definitely.
Premiere.
Do we want to rate these episodes?
I give it. No, I can't put. I'm very bad at that. I don't.
Fine, I'll do it a 7.
7 out of.
I'll gladly do
out
that.
of 10.
Yeah, out of 10.
Yeah, I think
it's
that's about right.
It's a good start. Nothing that blows me away, but nothing that actually, I have any problems with.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good benchmark. It's like, this is a good, decent episode.
Yeah. Well, here we are.
Can be better, can be worse.
Yeah, here we are. Farscapeworld.com has an average score for each episode, and they give their scores are out of 5, and and Premiere got 3.36. So I think that's kind of equivalent.
It's about the same. I might need to switch my rating system. Okay.
No, it's fine. But yeah, it's a pretty strong pilot and really drops you into the deep end.
Yeah. There's aliens. Go.
Yeah, I think that about wraps things up, and there's a lot to love about the practical effects and the creature work and all of the set design, and that's what really stands out from this first episode. Like, they really show all of that off, because they have the scene on the Commerce Planet, which has a bunch of aliens just in the background, and you have that huge puppet that is the merchant that Rigel is talking with, and
it looked great.
Yeah, they're really
well
showing off what the Jim Henson Company can do.
Money well spent.
Yep. So yeah, that was episode 1 of the Farscape Rewatch. Up next on the list, it is IET.
I love this episode. It's one of the few episodes I've actually seen in the series.
Just to give you a bit of whet your appetite, a peacekeeper beacon goes off, and Moya has to land on an alien planet. And some things happen.
But we'll get to that next week.
We will, indeed. And yeah, until next time, I have been CantWearHats, and joining me has been...
RedNightmare.
And this was the Farscape Rewatch podcast. We hope you liked it. This is something new that we're trying out, and in fact was brought about by the CantWearHats Patreon, by viewers like you. There was a tier on that which was offline, or rather non-live content, because I do a whole bunch of streaming and stuff on my Twitch channel, but I wanted to start making stuff that was not streaming. And this was the first thing out of the bag of mystery, or mystery box, or whatever you want to call it.
You looked into the bag and there was like a DVD, it was a
There's like
DVD box of Farscape, and me. It's like,
perfect, that'll do. So yeah, we're trying this out and we'll see how it goes, and we hope you like it. And if you do, let us know. Just send me a tweet. I am at Twitter at CantWearHats, and RedNightmare, your Twitter is
at Vidalken3. VEDALKEN.
Vidalken Intry. There you go.
Vidalken Intry.
And we will be bringing you many more of these. There's 88 episodes of this, so we're going to be here for a little while.
I'm going to do them all.
Yes. But yeah, that's it from us today, and we will see you again next week for IET.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.